Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker.
And me, DB Fastbinder. And before we begin, can I just say that I don't know what people watch us for anymore after this week?
Yeah, I don't either.
Because so for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we've gotten into a habit of we'll both watch a new movie and an old movie and then talk about it together with the shared reference point.
Mhm.
And then and if we happen to watch or read anything that's interesting over the course of the week, we'll just do a short solo review of that.
Yeah,
And the pattern that we've had for a while is that uh, classic action movies get a lot of views,
mhm.
um, and animation does not, even if it's things that were trending at the time, like the Amazing Digital Circus.
Right.
But we
Yeah,
just accepted that, you know what, we like the occasional animated movie. But we're not here to just do just we're not just here to chase views.
right. Yeah,
And then the Great Mouse Detective goes and gets more views than anything else from last week.
yeah. I can't help you there.
And then on top of that, the 1942 classic, The Man Who Came to Dinner, comes in second place, which I was not expecting anybody to care about that one.
Yeah, I wasn't either. No.
so so I guess the lesson is we review what we feel like, and the chips fall where they may.
Indeed. Yes. Well, we've got some pretty good movies to review for this week. A couple of action movies. As DB said before, one new and one all classic. And hey, D Rhino, good to see you.
Hey, man.
And then I've got a little review that I'm going to do. Um, but before we get into all of that, we have to get into box office.
Yes, the box office, the oracle into what will be made in the future.
Yes, and Chinga says, I guess people really like those mice cartoons. I guess. Yeah.
Well, the strange thing is that we didn't get a lot of views for the Rescuers Down Under too, or Rescuers Down Under. So
Yeah.
I guess people like Sherlock Holmes. I don't know.
I guess. Yeah. I know. But yeah. So we got Wonka at the top still.
Yeah, it's probably going to lose its throne next week. But things I noticed doing some comparison points is that it last weekend it crept past the Hunger Games cume over, but it was only out for 1 month instead of two.
Mm.
So predictions I saw that Wonka would, like a lot of musicals, just leg out. Boy, that turned out to be prescient.
Yeah.
I believe it's also yeah, it's doing even better internationally, double the domestic haul.
Wow. Of course, it got a head start internationally because it released in
Oh,
other
that's right.
territories first.
That's right. But not that doesn't account for nearly double.
Yeah, that's
It looks
true.
like the United Kingdom is the big market for it.
Is Timothy Chalamet British?
It wouldn't surprise me if he was, he said, hedging his bets.
Yeah, I know he had an American accent in Dune.
He is an American and French actor,
Oh, okay.
which
That's
France
interesting.
is the third biggest international market for it. But
Well, Roald Dahl was British, wasn't he?
yep, so
Okay.
it is a British story set in England. So
Okay. Yeah, that might be why.
yep, and there's China with not a whole lot.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
so Warner Brothers, one success. To skip down the list a little bit, The Color Purple is kind of bombing hard
Mm,
because that was a surprisingly expensive movie. I looked up its budget. We're talking 90 to 100 million
wow,
for a musical based on The Color Purple.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, now it's also got legs, but that's because it dropped on Christmas Day, which throws off all comparison points.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to have an international release so far, which
I
is
I don't see that.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't see this movie doing that well internationally.
That's racist. Although I mean, we have talked about before where it's like it's like a chicken and the egg problem. Do they
Yeah.
not give these the international due their due because of past results, or do they not, or like do they try and it doesn't work? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
At the very least, it's definitely slowing down. Like it had a very big Christmas Day drop, which
Mhm.
helped out. It's kind of been, yeah, it's dying down pretty quick. So I guess that the strategy of releasing two musicals at the same time to hedge their bets kind of blew up in Warner Brothers' faces slightly.
Yeah, especially when one is I hate to say this, one's more marketable than the other.
Well, I mean, when you get down to it, outside of any other factors, the trailers I saw for Wonka just made it look super charming and light and upbeat. Now, the trailers kind of conveniently left out that it was a musical, which is really surprising in retrospect.
Yeah.
Uh, I also saw some trailers for The Color Purple. I think those also left out that it was a musical.
Hmm.
I'm reasonably sure it's a musical, but I saw a trailer for it, and I mean, there was a song being sung in the trailer, but I just assumed it was, trailer
Yeah.
music, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, the Fantasia Barrino is in it, so that's why, and she was in the
Mm,
musical, uh, the stage play. So
okay.
yeah.
Well, I was just unaware of that, so that's,
Yeah.
you know. Meanwhile, Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, and The Lost Kingdom, I should say, managed to sneak past 100 million over the weekend, and in 3 days of wide release, it made 2 million more.
Ugh.
This fish does not seem to have legs,
No, it doesn't.
which is kind of a shame because of the DCEU movies that they had in their backlog that they just shoved out to die in 2023. This one's probably the best or second best. Like I would probably say that if you aren't a weird comic book fan like me and can deal with like a Infinite Crisis type event or Flashpoint type event, like
Yeah.
Flash, like that would put Flash at third place ahead of Shazam.
Yeah.
I don't like. I would if you asked me which is better, Aquaman 2 or Blue Beetle, I would probably vary the answer based on the audience.
Mm.
Uh, Going down the list, Migration is definitely showing some staying power.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah. Don't bet against Illumination.
Yeah, they're. I mean, it's definitely going to be their lowest grossing movie ever, but it's doing way better than I think it had less than a $10 million opening weekend.
Yeah. Well, Mario will cover it.
Yes. Let's see, what was its opening weekend? Let's fact check me. How old did I remember? Okay, 12 million. So not anything to write home about.
Yeah.
The thing is that this isn't like Puss in Boots where the world went, wait, this is actually a good movie.
Yeah.
Just like in general, where I hear Migration is like good for single digit kids.
Yeah.
The surprising one that's growing in strength weekend over weekend is Anyone But You,
Mm.
which it's the first time I've seen a romantic comedy actually do well in ages.
Yeah. The Jennifer Lawrence movie did okay, I think.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right.
no hard feelings, which we reviewed on the channel, by the way.
Yes, go back and watch the replay.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, this one's actually just about caught up with it,
Yeah.
at least domestically. So,
Yeah.
but I guess it's a deal where you have
Chinga says,
yeah,
migration needed that panic attack scene so Twitter can hype it up. Don't know anything about that.
yeah, no. But anyway, so it goes to show the value of counter programming. Like, if no one else is coming out with romantic comedies, there's a big audience for romantic comedies, as much as people keep screwing it up recently.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the prestige category, you've got The Boys in the Boat from MGM, aka another arm of the Amazon octopus.
Yeah. The Amazon empire.
And it's holding in there, though this seems like the type of movie where they aren't out to necessarily make a huge amount of money. It's more about like the prestige or like the Oscar contention.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, released on December 25th, just in time.
Justin. Yeah.
Which, by the way, the fact that they're releasing that Bob Marley biopic in January, when that seems like that should be an Oscar content, like an Oscar bait movie,
Yeah.
not encouraging.
No, no, not encouraging at all.
It's like, well, we tried and it didn't work out. Shove it out in January to die with the Jason Statham action movies.
Oh, or the Liam Neeson action movies. Although Liam Neeson doesn't have an action movie coming out this year, but yeah.
Oh, shockingly.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, the Mean Girls musical. Like, the fact that they decided to put the Mean Girls musical in January is not encouraging.
No.
Because, like, clearly Wonka is showing there is a market for musicals. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
at least, what I should say, there is a market for good musicals.
Yes.
Going on the list, we already talked about The Color Purple kind of losing steam.
Yeah.
Iron Claw from A24 is following the usual. Actually, no, I guess it isn't following the usual Seesaw A24 pattern where they just buy whatever theaters are available
Yeah.
or rent. It's plugging away. I've heard really good things.
Yeah.
Ferrari might be out of gas.
Oof.
Tish. Then we've got Poor Things, which sounds disturbing because like an infant in a grown woman's body, and then is a romance thing.
Yeah. That not my cup of tea.
No,
And hey, Ninja, good to see you.
it's not nearly anime enough to go. Oh, but she's actually 5,000 years old.
Right.
Not nearly anime. I should say not nearly anime or Shazam enough to try to pull that.
Right.
But as far as like interesting comparisons, Migration has already outpaced Wish's domestic box office
Ooh.
in half the time. Wish did actually do something internationally, so Wish has exceeded the Marvel's box office.
Oh, okay.
This is not super impressive, but
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's not a very low benchmark. But yeah.
And unless they just yank Godzilla -1 from theaters, it's going to cross 50 million domestically this week. So good on it.
Oh yeah.
Very deserving. But yeah, Wonka's the one keeping the box office intact this 2-month period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll see if Chalamet can do that again with Dune Part 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Godzilla sweep.
Indeed. Well, I think that sums up everything about the box office. Get ready for a few weeks of what I. Oh yeah, also Night Swim, horror movie. No opinion.
Yeah. No opinion. I saw Wyatt Russell is in the cast.
Don't know that name.
Kurt Russell's kid.
Oh yeah, okay.
He was in. Well, you didn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. He was.
Remember, you're our underpaid and but highly appreciated Disney Plus correspondent.
Yeah. He was U.S. agent in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's also in Monarch, the Godzilla show on Apple TV. He plays he and his father Kurt Russell play the same character but in different time periods.
Oh, they're Godzilla and Minya. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. That's enough dumb humor. Let's move on to our contemporary movie review.
Yes.
The Equalizer 3, aka the Punisher movie that Disney doesn't have the balls to make.
Yes. um, Now I have not seen Punisher 1 and 2. Have you?
You mean Equalizer 1 and 2?
Or Equalizer, sorry.
I hadn't either.
Yeah. And you really didn't need to see the first two movies?
No, the only thing that struck me as a continuity nod was uh, was Dakota Fanning's character apparently being the daughter of a character in a photo that looked like it was taken in one of the previous movies.
Yeah.
So I wondered if uh, I, I wonder if that actress had passed away or just wasn't able to be in this movie to kind of be
Yeah.
his handler.
Yeah, I don't know. We may have to go back and watch the first two movies. But D. Rhino says, yeah, he things are good. He likes the first one.
I kind of heard that the first one was like more beloved than the second,
Yeah, yeah. But
but this one stands quite well on its own.
yeah,
So like all you really need to know is that Denzel's character McCall, what's his first name again?
Robert McCall.
Robert. I got confused because he kept identifying himself as Roberto to people because he was in Italy at the time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Robert McCall. Uh, this is a gory, not it's gore, yeah, gory, but brutal,
Brutal. Yeah.
brutal movie.
Yeah. 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 So like, let's get into the plot a little.
Yeah.
So the movie starts with where Dean Ryan says the third's great, but the greediness of the first one is too. Okay.
Wait, did they tone it down for this one? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So Robert McCall. The movie starts off where we're in a vineyard in Sicily, and Denzel Washington's character Robert McCall. He's made his way through there, taking out everybody there because it's obviously a criminal enterprise there operating there under the guise of being a vineyard.
Yep. And the way they introduce this fight scene is interesting because you see the aftermath.
Yeah.
Because you have the guy who owns the vineyard. Like, yeah, he's like got himself a. Was he holding a shotgun? I know his grandson later had a shotgun.
Yeah, his grandson had a shotgun. I think his son had the shotgun, and he had a handgun.
Okay, so it's like he's going through the house, and you find all these dudes who have just been horribly murdered, one
Yeah,
after the other.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But uh, what do you call them?
Like a
Well,
kitchen knife, pinning them to a table like they're a butterfly in a collection.
yeah, yeah. It's just very very gruesome scene. Um,
Okay, yeah, I knew grandson had the shotgun. I just
yeah,
couldn't remember if they both had shotguns. But he comes in, and there's McCall sitting down,
yeah,
being like with two guys keeping a beat on him with pistols.
yeah. And he's kind of cleaning himself off, and just like yeah. And the only reason that you know why he's there is because these guys have took something that didn't belong to them, and he's there to get it back.
Yep.
And so then he does this little equalizer trick where he's got his watch and he says, "All right, you got 9 seconds."
And the 9 seconds run out, and whew,
Yeah, yeah. The revolver through the eye socket.
yeah, that was yeah. Yeah, we're not
Man,
we're not going to give away all the kills, but this is like this movie's on Netflix. This is like the first 5 minutes. Like this, it's just to give you a hint. If you're squeamish, this
yeah,
movie may not be for you.
right, yeah, yeah. So yeah, so then he dispatches the rest of the bad guys, and he's walking out with a backpack full of something. Don't know what's in there.
Yep.
And then the grandson is still in the Land Rover with the shotgun. Although he doesn't, although Robert doesn't see the shotgun, he just sees the grandson in the car, and he tells the kid, "Hey, stay in the car."
The grandson says, "No, I would rather shoot you in the back
Yeah,
if that's
and
okay with you."
yes, yeah. So Robert gets shot in the back, and then we see him on a ferry going over to Napoli, Naples, and of course, as he's driving, he loses consciousness, and then he gets picked up by a cop and dropped off in this little coastal city called Altamonte.
Altamonte, yeah,
Altamonte.
which I believe means old mount. It's either old mountain or high mountain.
Yeah. Um, and what's really interesting is I actually went and Googled it. There is an Altamonte, Italy,
Hmm.
but it's actually not on the coast. It's further inland. Um,
Which makes sense for yeah. I'm guessing that means high mountain.
yeah. And yeah, so they actually filmed. It looked like they filmed it on the Amalfi Coast, which, if you know anything about Italy, the Amalfi Coast that's where all the rich people live, and
Right.
all the like rich Europeans go there on vacation.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense because that's the side that's the Italian coast that actually has good ports.
Right. Yeah. And so he gets brought in with the into this doctor, and they basically kind of say, "All right, don't tell anybody, what happened to him." And the doctor patches them up, and then so Robert spends the next couple of weeks or so in this little in this very beautiful, very nice, peaceful Italian village that anybody would probably want to live in.
Yeah, it really reminded me of the village from Luca of all places. So
Mm,
it kind of shows you that the people who made that movie actually did some good research and site visits and things like that.
yeah.
Which I nobody was expecting to hear a straight to Disney Plus Pixar movie mentioned in an Equalizer 3 review, but that's what I kept thinking of.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so he spends a few weeks convalescing,
Mhm,
recovering himself, getting to know the locals,
yeah.
uh, and I heard this at the time that it was released, likened to an old western.
Mhm.
And Daniel, when we were talking about, it, you mentioned that you thought it reminded you of The Shootist.
Yeah, I thought it was very similar to it. Where, like John Wayne shows up in this little town, and he's just kind of, old guy, and he's, just, you know,
Just
maybe
wants to
maybe
be left
trying
alone.
just wants to be left alone. Yeah, it's very much very similar thing here. Yeah, Robert Denzel Washington, he just wants to be left alone, and he's just wants to leave as soon as he can, and but then he starts seeing how some of the things happen in the town, mainly mafia types are basically hustling everybody and
Protection money.
protection money. Yeah.
Which I think this is a good time to mention. This practically is a foreign language movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, a lot of Italian. Yeah.
Like, so if you aren't fond of subtitles, then I don't know what to tell you. Learn Italian.
Yeah. Yeah. um but and then so that's kind of the A plot, at least in the first two acts. And then we've got the B plot where uh, Denzel calls up Dakota Fanning in the CIA. So Denzel and Dakota Fanning are
Reunited, and it's so
reunited. Yeah.
funny that we
Yeah.
watched there are only two movies back to back.
Yeah. So he calls up Dakota Fanning, who's an analyst for the CIA, and he kind of tells her, "Hey, this vineyard in Sicily is importing wine from Syria," and she's like, okay,
Well, why would they be importing? Why would an Italian winery be importing wine from Syria?
yeah, hmm,
Turns out, drugs,
sure, yes,
jihadi drugs, with a convenient crescent and star on it to
yeah,
mark them as jihadi drugs.
yes, in in case it wasn't obvious enough. um, yeah, so they're working that angle of it, and
Yeah. It's also got a little bit of Rebel Moon, aka Magnificent Seven, in it, insofar as uh, the same people who are importing these jihadi drugs are also trying to do. They're basically trying to force people out of their homes to build up, you know, real estate for. I'm guessing more wealthy people.
right, yeah, they want to basically turn it into another Monte Carlo.
Hmm.
Um, and so when Denzel finds out about this, he decides, because yeah, he gets to know the people in the town. He really likes the town, and
Yep.
he's just like, okay, yeah, yeah. I'm not going to stand for you guys doing this to these people.
When the doom music begins.
Yeah,
It's basically Denzel, who is a former. They don't really say what exactly he is. I'm assuming a former CIA.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, like the assassin hitman kind of guy.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, this would be so easy to rewrite into being a Punisher movie.
Hmm.
Okay, and it's got a lot of classic elements to it. You've got the aging warrior finding a bit of peace, that peace being disrupted, in him raising holy hell in
Yeah,
defense of that peace.
oh yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, yeah, this movie is very yeah, like you're saying, it's brutal, but it's really good. I enjoyed the story very much. And of course, it's Denzel Washington. Like even though it might not be believable that a guy his age could be able to do the stuff he's doing in this movie, but I mean, he pulls it off.
To be perfectly honest, it wouldn't be believable for people most ages to pull this off.
That's true. Yeah,
The man is a force of friggin' nature.
yeah, yeah.
Although, to be fair, he does usually use the element of surprise, and possibly quite often people underestimating him because of his age.
Right. Yeah.
And the villain they got in this is a bastard. I don't want to necessarily talk about all the crazy stuff he does because that
Yeah.
would be because he doesn't really enter the movie until like the second half, so that would constitute some spoilers of some of the more impactful scenes.
Yeah, yeah, but oh yeah, he is vicious. Um and it kind of I guess it kind of proves the point that if you're going to have a really vicious bad guy, or if you have a protagonist who's known for kind of his brutality and viciousness, you got to have a villain that's equally brutal and vicious.
Right. Say one of my issues with the Snyder cut of the Justice League movie was that scene where Superman, for no reason, burned off one of like half of Steppenwolf's head, like burned
Oh,
off one of his
yeah.
horns
Yeah.
when he had him pinned, and it was clear he was not a threat to Superman.
Yeah.
It's got it's got to feel proportional, and these bad guys earn all the things that Denzel does to them.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Yeah, as Chinga said, Denzel turned into a straight on slasher villain near the end, and yeah,
For sure.
yeah. And D Rhino says that he's gonna buy the trilogy. Yeah, I might end up buying it too. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really funny. I so I often use Fandango when I to go to the movies, and I bought my father and I tickets to go see Aquaman 2.
yeah,
And they always do this thing like you get enough tickets, and oh, here's a $5 credit for your next tickets, and it always ends up expiring before I get a chance to use it.
uh,
Because there's never another movie I want to see in like the 3 week window or whatever you get.
yeah,
And then I noticed, oh, Fandango owns Vudu these days, and I can use that $5 credit towards the current movie. Oh, I know. I'll buy Equalizer 3. I heard good things about that. And oh, I'll just to make sure Daniel doesn't have to buy it. I'll figure out how to give him access to my account, and then I
yeah.
turn on Netflix, and there it is. I don't know. It must have just dropped after I bought it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Dope.
Doe. So I'll give the benefit of some of the behind the scenes features I access that aren't on Netflix.
Mhm.
They did have a little thing where you had Dakota talking about working with Denzel again for the first time since their what was that movie we did last week again?
Man on Fire.
Yeah, for working for the first time together since Man on Fire. And she said that like working with Denzel, he kind of keeps you on your toes, and her body remembered what it was like acting opposite from him.
Yeah.
So it sounds like he's intense.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Yeah, there's a another one of his movies, Remember the Titans. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I have, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, there's a scene in there where he's talking to the guy who played Turk from Scrubs.
Hmm.
And they're talking about, oh, you think football is fun? Yeah, yeah. Oh, you really? And they have this like whole back and forth type thing.
Hmm.
And I just love to hear the audio commentary, maybe from whatever his name was that played Turk and Scrubs, and say, oh man, that scene was so hard to do.
Yeah. They kept having. I peed myself 3 times.
Yeah, yeah.
But the so I'll say that from a directing perspective, if we compare it to last week's movie, way less experimental. Like
Oh
this,
yeah.
like it was possibly a little bit indulgent in places. And if I have a criticism, the
Mhm.
first 20 minutes is a little bit slow and
Yeah.
plotting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Antoine Fuqua directed it, and I believe he directed the first two. I'm trying
Okay.
to think, what other movies did he direct? Uh, uh, he did that one. He did one of the White House movies that was like a
Oh, the
Die
White
Hard
House
one.
Down ones.
Yeah.
That's your
Um.
2004's King Arthur. Oof. I guess that
Oh, that's right. I remember that movie.
I guess that shows that you can always recover.
Yeah. Well, he usually works with Denzel Washington.
Okay, he did Olympus Has Fallen.
Okay, that's the one. Yeah, Olympus Has Fallen.
Southpaw. He did the Magnificent Seven remake. Gee, I wonder
Oh.
where the Western influences came from for this movie.
Oh, yeah.
He also did Infinite. Hmm.
Hmm.
The Guilty. Oh, he a lot of movies he's come out with. Oh, he did that Emancipation movie with where uh, where Will Smith pretended he's a real actor.
Oh, yeah, that movie.
Uh, and note, I don't. I still. It's not like he's. Not like Will Smith is an awful actor. I'm of the opinion that's like possibly sometime around when he got together with Jada, he decided he had to be a real actor when his
Mhm.
real strength was always, you know, being that charismatic, comedic, lovable lead. And
Yeah.
he started doing things like 7 pounds and things like that.
Yeah, and, The Pursuit of Happiness, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, Pursuit of Happiness at least looked like it was using his strengths from the trailers. I never actually got around to seeing it.
I didn't either. Well, that one was based on a true story.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But I guess what I'm saying is we have wandered off the point here.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, we have, yeah. Yeah.
it's a director. It comes from a director with a wide ranging catalog.
Yes. Um, yeah, and, what was I gonna say? Well, I would just, what's that?
Oh, and we're not saying it because it's spoilers, but the thing that didn't belong to the guy he killed in the first scene does have a
Oh,
satisfying ending there too, and it just kind of shows you
yeah,
why he's kind of a superhero already, even if he
yeah,
because I could see Frank Castle doing that. Like,
yeah,
like if they ever decide to stop pussyfooting around and make themselves a R-rated Punisher movie, yeah, bring in this guy. Like, bring in Fuqua. Like, he's
yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He'd be able to get the tone perfectly.
Yeah, I think so too. I Yeah, this was, I mean, not a great movie, but it's certainly one of the better movies from last year. I mean,
Yep.
um, I can see why this franchise has the following that it does. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I think that we have equalized that topic.
Yes.
Speaking of, I will find a way to connect this.
uh,
Speaking of movies that reunite or that brought back aging stars into a beloved role,
there we go. Yeah.
Star Trek:
So
The Motionless Picture,
the
as it's
motionless.
called.
Yeah. Yeah, so I picked this movie up on 4K recently. I actually got the director's cut of it, which I had not seen since it was released on DVD like 20 odd years ago, and it didn't get a Blu-ray release for some reason.
Huh.
Yeah, but it got a 4K release, and I had not seen this movie in a very long time. Part of the reason for that is because one of the stars of the movie, the actor, is not a good
Oh,
guy.
oh yeah. Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Bit
Uh,
of the Hollyweird disease,
yes, yes, yes.
as I recall.
Yeah. Um,
And
but
just think, that guy was going to be the star of Star Trek Continues.
no, it's a different guy.
Oh, okay.
That guy, or he might, maybe he was. I don't remember.
I think it was him. The
Was it okay? Or are you referring to Star Trek Phase Two?
Phase Two. That's it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay. Yeah, Star Trek Continues is the one with
Oh, that's the fan film.
yeah, that's the fan film with Vic Mignogna.
Oh, my
Um
bad.
yeah, yeah.
Star Trek Phase Two then.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think he was going to be in that. It was the guy in that one, I think he was the Vulcan, and he actually has a small role in this movie. And but yeah, so if you've never I'm assuming if you know anything about Star Trek, you probably know the plot of the movie. I won't go too far into it, but so the movie centers around this alien entity called V'ger that is on its way to Earth for unknown reasons, and
Well, it's known reasons now. Now that you did your Star Trek audiobook a few weeks back,
oh
the
right, yeah,
totally canon fan fiction written by William Shatner himself. It was a Borg.
oh right, yes, yeah. So V'ger is well, mild spoiler. Actually, I'm not really without spoiling it. This movie's 45 years old. Almost 45 years. Well, 44 years old.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so V'ger is a machine that's coming back to Earth to reunite with its creator, and the Enterprise, which has just been refitted, is sent to intercept it. Part of the plot is that Kirk, who's an admiral, uh, uses the crisis to get command of the Enterprise back from Captain William Decker, who's played by the aforementioned really bad guy actor.
Yep. That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is canon or not, but I've heard that his character that Decker is the son of the Commodore from the Doomsday Machine, the one that went nuts.
Huh.
I don't know if that's canon or not, but it's just because they're both their last names are Decker. But yeah, so they intercept the intercept V'ger, and then they find out, try to find out what it is and what it wants. And part of the plot too is Lieutenant Ilea, who's the young lady you see in the poster. Um, she's from a planet called Delta, um, and apparently the women on this planet have a certain effect on men, if you know what I mean. Uh,
Yeah. It's Gene Roddenberry had some weird things that occasionally came up in his ideas.
yeah, yeah. If you ever watch Chaos on the Bridge, Ira Stephen Bear, who I mentioned last week, who was the showrunner on DS9. Before that, he worked on TNG, and he was the one who came up with Risa, the Pleasure Planet. And he's
Mm.
describing it to Roddenberry, and then Roddenberry just kind of goes with it completely. It takes it even further, almost turning it into like like late night cable stuff. It's just like,
Um, uh,
mm. Okay. but um, but yeah. So
Look, he's a nerd. He's allowed to be unsatisfied in a little bit, Randy.
yeah, that's true. That's true. And I'm not one to judge, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but um, but anyway, Decker and Ilea had a relationship beforehand when Decker was stationed on her homeworld, which definitely parallels Riker and Troy's relationship from TNG. Um, yeah, and then V'ger takes over Ilea, turns her into a probe, and that's how they communicate with V'ger. Um, and then of course they find out V'ger is a was actually one of the old Voyager probes. Actually, I don't think there was a Voyager 6, but um, uh,
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there's just Voyager 1 and 2, if memory
yeah,
serves.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, the Voyager probe ended up falling on a planet of living machines, which, as Stevie mentioned in Shatner's book, were actually the Borg, which yeah, that was,
Totally canon. Yeah.
yes, totally canon, yeah. But yeah, then stuff happens at the end, and then the day is saved. The movie, I think when it came out, um, it did get that reputation, as DB said, as being the motionless picture, because that is the biggest flaw of this movie, is that it is very slow paced. Um,
Right. There's a reason it got the motionless picture name.
yeah, yeah, because like I mean, the Enterprise doesn't get to encounter V'ger until about 50 minutes into the movie. And this movie's close to 2.5 hours. So yeah.
Now, is the director cut 2.5 hours or the base cut 2.5 hours?
The director's cut's almost 2.5 hours. I think the base cut's like 210, 215, something around in there. There's actually another version of the movie that I think was right at 2.5 hours. I had it on VHS when I was a kid, and that was the one I watched. And I have not seen that cut in decades. I don't know if it still exists somewhere, or if somebody has that VHS copy somewhere. Um, but yeah, it's that's probably like and the other negative with the movie is the focus on Decker and Ilea a little too much, and not necessarily enough on the cast of the original series.
Right. Which, with hindsight, with it trying to be the backdoor pilot for what would have been a new series that just never happened,
Yeah, that's true.
that makes enough sense.
Yeah,
Actually, in a way, it's what a lot of people have been advocating that the Star Wars sequels should have been. Like where
yeah,
the existing cast still had an impact on the plot, but with the newbies taking a bigger role over time.
right. Yeah, yeah. Ninja said he heard it was called the slow motion picture. Yeah, I mean it. I mean there are definitely some parts in there where there were like, okay. For one of the things too with this movie was that it went way over budget, um,
Yeah.
and so all those visual effects that they did for it. I mean, they really needed to show that off because they had to justify the amount of money they spent on it. Um, but I think this movie it picks up in the third act, and I think that's where yeah, and it just says it's trying to be like 2001: Space Odyssey. Yeah, it was trying to be more like that and less like Star Wars, because a big reason this movie got made was because of Star Wars, the success of Star Wars, and then Paramount was like, hey, don't we own something kind of like that? um, but um, but yeah, it picks up near the end, especially when it starts getting more philosophical. Um, And actually, the philosophy with it reminded me a lot of Ghost in the Shell, and V'ger kind of reminds me of the Puppet Master.
Right, where it has like an existential crisis because it's like, what is my, geez,
Right.
stupid meme brain. I'm thinking of the Rick and Morty. What is my purpose?
Yes. You pass butter.
Dear
Oh my
God.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. but yeah, and also the fact that it merges with a human. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but this is I think this movie is better than a lot of people give it credit. A lot of people think, and people give it credit for. It's it's not the action heavy Star Trek that you used to seeing with the other movies, and it has the most Star Trek story of all of the movies, which you know uh, it's unfortunate that this movie didn't do well enough because I think more Star Trek movies probably should be more Star Trekky.
that's a fair point. Where yeah, the other Star Trek movies are weirdly they're more action and character oriented, as I would say.
Yeah, yeah,
Not,
like the like two and three are like space adventures. Star Trek 4 is like a time travel comedy. Um,
we don't talk about five.
we don't talk about
Yeah,
5.
I gotta say, five was trying to be philosophical, but Shatner didn't quite have it in him
Yeah,
to actually have something to say.
yeah, s-
Six might be the one that's the closest to this one in depth, just because of
yeah,
like the political allegory
right, yeah,
and the moral questions behind it.
yeah, and then of course then like the next generation movies were definitely all
Oh
space.
God,
They were all space adventure action movies
yeah,
for the most part.
yeah.
Um,
But
yes,
now,
yeah.
what do you think they added in the director's cut that gave another 15 minutes?
So there were a few additional scenes that they put in. Like when Bones first arrives on the Enterprise, Kirk talks to a yeoman and he asks her like, "Well, what happened with the crew member didn't beam up?" And she mentioned, she said, "Well, he wanted us to go first to see how it scrambled our molecules because for those of you who know your Trek lore, Bones hates transporters." Um,
Oh God, yeah, that's right. This movie has the most horrifying transporter incident ever.
yeah, yes, yeah. um, uh, It's hard to believe this movie got a G rating when it first came out.
We coddle children today.
Yeah, we do. We do. And
It's weird. We've gone from a G rating being general audience, so more people will come, to in like the modern day G rating is almost a this is going to be for the smallest of children. Stay away.
yeah, yeah. And well, the big thing that they did though was they upgraded all of the special effects, or most of the special effects.
Kind of like they did for the reworking of the original in Next Generation.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Um, although I would say a little more. Although for motion picture, quality. Yeah, like you see V'ger like as the cloud dissipates, and you actually see the V'ger ship, a
Mm.
CGI version of it, and you actually see more of like the outside action from the ship, and yeah. But but yeah, I mean, if you get the chance to watch this movie 4K, definitely give it a watch. It's really good in 4K. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, speaking of things that take a long time, or
Yeah.
speaking of long periods of time,
Yes.
48 hours.
48 hours. Yeah.
This was our classic movie of the week, and I think the reason it was on my mind was because my dad actually compared the plot of Aquaman 2 to this one, and I'd already put it aside on Paramount Plus to watch later because it has such a bizarre premise or bizarre sounding to somebody in 2024 premise that I couldn't help but want to watch it at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I had seen this movie once before. It'd been a long time. And yeah, it's it is definitely in that transition period from the 70s to the 80s. in terms of the action and the humor. I think it was the first kind of like of this like buddy cop genre.
Yeah, I don't know well enough. Uh,
Yeah,
so
certainly
here,
popularized it. But yeah,
yeah. So the premise of the movie is Nick Nolte is the ultimate slob cop. Like he does not like he he has all of the he has all of the stereotypes you could possibly do.
yeah,
It's like he sleeps over at his girlfriend's place and she goes, "Oh, if you let me sleep over at your place occasionally, you might have a clean shirt." Like, you assume I have a clean shirt at home?
yeah,
Pours his flask of whiskey into the coffee,
yeah,
constantly smoking,
yeah,
blatantly racist.
yeah,
Does nothing by the book, dangerous to everyone around him, including himself.
yeah. Drives a beat up old Cadillac. Yeah,
Yeah, like I was saying when I was watching it that, you know, the 70s went into the 80s quite a bit. And now I'm kind of thinking maybe he looked like he was several years out of date on purpose because like his character is going to keep up with fashion at all.
right. Yeah, uh, yeah,
And what happens here is that a pair of no, it's just the one guy gets sprung from a prison work gang by his Native American associate, killing
yes.
a couple of guards in the process. And in the course of trying to apprehend him, two cops who are reluctantly working with Nick Nolte are also gunned down.
Yeah, and one of them takes Nick Nolte's gun, which is a big deal for a cop. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're not supposed to lose track of that.
Right. Yeah.
And so, in kind of a desperate bid, Nick Nolte goes to prison and finds Eddie Murphy, who was this escaped convict's partner before they were both arrested, and forges a document to get him released for 48 hours to help him track down his whereabouts.
Yes, and hijinks ensue.
Yep, because you've got peak coolness Eddie Murphy um, playing a somewhat similar character to what he did in Beverly Hills Cop, actually.
Yeah, very very similar. Yeah. Tom over at Midnight's Edge, I think characterizes Eddie Murphy and Beverly Hills Cop pretty well. Axel Foley says he's a con artist pretending to be a cop.
Which Eddie Murphy also does in this movie,
Yes.
except that Axel Foley is officially actually a cop.
Yeah. Yeah.
This guy, no, absolutely not.
No. Yeah. Yeah. So, by the way, I think Eddie Murphy was like 20 or 21 when he made this movie. He wasn't. I know he wasn't very old.
Let's find out. So Eddie Murphy is currently 62. So go back in time to 1982. Yeah,
Yeah, he was 20. Yeah.
dang. Okay.
He was a kid. um, but yeah, so so he gets sprung out of jail and you know at first you kind of think like Eddie Murphy's like kind of taking him on like a wild goose chase, just kind of just kind of like going to different
Right.
places and they turn out to
Right.
be dead ends.
It's like, yeah, I totally know what he's up to.
Y-
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
please just get me out of this prison for 5 minutes. Hey, I need to chase some skirt. Give
yeah,
me some time alone. Like
yeah,
he's desperate.
yeah, yeah,
And yes, like it's funny. Like if I was thinking of a classic buddy cop scenario, I would have put Murphy with a upstanding cop. But no, this is like this is kind of a nice. I hate to use the word subversion, but play on it.
yeah.
uh, where the criminal is the one who's has more dignity and class, and he gets himself a $500 suit, and versus the cop who's just a slovenly oaf who blunders his way through everything with violence and profanity in the air.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a really good scene in there where of course they go into this one of the bars I go into, which is like a southern bar,
Country western bar,
country
yeah.
western bar, which you wouldn't expect to find in San Francisco.
The
Maybe in
80s
the
were different,
80s.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's probably one if you knew where to look today, because
yeah.
there's always people who stand out somewhere.
That's true. Yeah, and yeah, of course, Eddie Murphy's the only black guy in the whole place,
And
and the
it's
nicest dressed in the whole place too.
Yep. So he takes the badge from, like, he and Nolte have a bet. I bet you that you can't get any information. So he takes the badge, carefully covers the face on the badge, and just plays cop for a few minutes.
Yeah, and you're kind of wondering the entire time. Are they like, are they going to catch on to him, or what's
Yeah,
gonna, or they're just going to keep playing along here?
and it keeps going along. He
Yeah,
he knows just how far to push it.
yeah, yeah. And then of course, then they go to another bar, which is a jazz blues bar,
Yep.
and then Nolte's the only white guy in there.
Do you come here often? Yeah, it's my favorite place. Why? I should say this is a very funny movie. Like, and it's
Yeah,
not funny in the sense that there's not like a lot of clever wordplay or well execute or well set of intricate jokes.
yeah,
It's a lot of juxtaposition humor.
right, yeah. Yeah, I should mention one of the writers on the movie was Stephen E. D'Souza,
Hmm.
who was also one of the writers on Die Hard,
Oh,
and he also wrote Commando with Schwarzenegger.
so that guy kind of made the '80s and made a movie for everybody.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he was also the writer and director of Street Fighter.
Wow, so he's a real genius.
Yes,
Look,
anybody who can get a performance from Raul Julia like that, yeah, yeah, he's a
yeah,
genius.
I mean, okay. Sidebar: the real
Yeah,
problem with that Street Fighter movie was I cannot imagine being handcuffed like that. You have to include every single one of these characters in their video game persona.
yeah, yeah.
What's really funny is, like, it's somebody had the right idea later, like, oh, let's just make a Street Fighter movie focused on a character, and
Mhm.
we got the execrable Street Fighter Chun Li, which was worse than Street Fighter the original movie.
Yes, it was because they had an actress. The actress playing Chun Li was weighed about 100 pounds, soaking wet.
And I don't even know if she was Asian. Like, was she half Asian?
Half Asian, I think. Yeah.
I recall thinking it was funny at the time when I watched it that her actress was, like, clearly like fully ethnic Chinese as a child. Like, wow, do you get whiter as you get older?
Yeah, yeah,
Any-
yeah, yeah,
that's more casting irregularity. Okay, back to
yeah,
this one.
yeah. Yes.
Speaking of racism, there's
Yes. Yeah.
there's a lot of it in this movie.
Oh, yeah. There are quite a lot of n words in here. Hard R n words in
Hard
this.
R N words,
Yeah.
calling him watermelon and just like the,
Man. Mm. Yeesh.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is a rough movie for like I would say this movie is way less, like, physically brutal, but dang, there's a lot of people out there who would not enjoy this just because of what's on display.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised when I watched that Paramount Plus that it didn't come with any trigger warnings.
I don't know if I've seen Paramount Plus doing that.
I haven't either.
I know Disney and Warner Brothers have for a couple of things.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Paramount's probably too busy trying to avoid bankruptcy and sell themselves off to worry about such things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. Uh, but yeah, I mean, this is a fun '80s action movie. It's got some pretty good sequences in there.
Yeah, and it is like the prototypical buddy cop movie, which is funny because one of them isn't actually a cop.
Right, yeah,
And I was telling Daniel before the show, watching this, I went, okay, that's the missing element in McBain. Like all those McBain movie parodies they would do,
yeah,
because, like, they weren't all Schwarzenegger movies. Like, this is, like, definitely the bones of the operate of the plot around the
Yeah, the
Heck, has Arnold ever even played a police officer in anything?
Kindergarten Cop.
Okay, besides Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah. Well,
Anything in
that,
the 80s that they would be parodying?
um, well, that one movie he did with Belushi, the
Twins?
Cocainum. I think.
Uh, well, okay, at the very
Yeah.
least, his best known 80s movies aren't him as a delinquent cop. So I think I
Yeah.
definitely see
Yeah.
where that
Yeah.
aspect of the McBain parody came from things like this, and maybe even this
Oh yeah.
specifically,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the name McBain, I think, is a take on McLean. Um,
which
and then
an
uh,
actual really awful action movie called McBain came out while they were making McBain stuff, and that's where they actually had to come up with the name Rainier Wolfcastle.
oh, okay.
I've actually seen McBain. It is an
Oh.
awful movie. Uh, thankfully I watched it. Like I got it from Riff Tracks, so
Okay.
it had them making fun of it, so that was funny. But still,
Yeah.
not a great movie.
Yeah, I would say, well, probably more Stallone with the cop movies in the '80s, like Cobra.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that type of weirdness.
yeah. Um, but yeah, the other thing too, the director was Walter Hill.
Mhm.
He did Warriors.
Come out to play, yay!
Yeah. um, he was the producer on the Alien movies.
Okay.
Um, and he also directed a very obscure 80s movie that you might like,
Mhm.
called Streets of Fire.
The name sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, it has like a 1930s 40s aesthetic, but with 80s music. It's not a musical, but music plays a role in the movie.
Okay.
Um, if you can find it, I don't know. It was streaming on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but actually, the success of this movie was what helped Walter Hill get Streets of Fire made.
Okay.
Um,
That Now to kind of drift back to this one a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
I think that knowing that Murphy was only 20 makes sense as something I was noticing.
yeah,
So in this one and a little bit in Beverly Hills, actually a lot in Beverly Hills Cop as well. I
mhm,
noticed that Murphy wasn't really acting with his face.
yeah. Yes, mainly with gestures and yeah, and his voice. Yeah.
And I wonder, I remember I wasn't as big a fan of Beverly Hills Cop as you were. And I
Mhm,
wonder if, I remember thinking the performance was flat, but I didn't really have like a specific descriptor. Like
yeah.
now, I'm sure he took some acting classes later because I don't remember him coming off that way in like, oh, the Nutty Professor.
No, he didn't. Yeah, no, he got better. I would say probably around Beverly Hills Cop 2 was when he started getting really good.
Okay, so maybe that we throw that in sometime.
Yeah.
But what really struck me was like it was comparing that to Nolte, where like his whole face, like if his character was confused, his brow would just go like
Yeah. Yeah.
like especially noticeable from the side because he kind of has caveman eyebrows.
Oh yeah.
And I realized I don't think I'd ever actually seen it. Okay, I had seen the Hulk, but
Yeah.
I can't think of it like a Nick Nolte vehicle I had seen before. And
Yeah. I've seen him in something else. I'm trying to think what
but,
it was.
but like
Yeah.
his performance in this, like okay, now I get decades of pop culture parodies about him being like weird and unhinged
Yeah.
because he's also like that like had some incidents in real life too. But
Mhm.
just watching him act, it's like okay, now Mad TV makes more sense.
Yeah. Have you seen that mugshot of him where his hair
No.
is like is like out everywhere? God, that was like 20 years ago, I think. 20, 25
Oh
years ago.
man.
Yeah, his yeah, 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 you should probably show it. Yeah, yeah, show it for the stream. Yeah, it's so like yeah, yeah.
He looks like he's insane, but he's ready to relax.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. So Daniel. Yeah,
yeah,
by the way, the reason we aren't talking about the movie as much is this has a thin enough plot that going blow by blow would spoil it in
right,
detail.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. We want you to watch this movie if you haven't seen it yet. It's yeah,
Yeah.
like we said, it's on Paramount Plus. Oh,
Yep. But yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. It's just like a lot of ridiculous comedies, like going like you wouldn't watch a Simpsons episode then describe it to everybody, like every single joke in the thing. You just go, oh yeah, in this one, Homer becomes a poodle trainer,
yeah,
and here's one funny gag to entice you to want to go watch it.
yeah, indeed. Yeah. Well,
Well, shorter show than we've been doing lately.
yeah. Well, not as much to talk about, but it's not a bad thing.
Nope. Well, thanks as always to everybody who joined us.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. We appreciate it as always. Oh, I forgot to at the beginning of the show. We forgot to mention to do the YouTube stuff.
Well, I happened to check, and some people already did it or took care of that for us. So
Oh, that's good.
I saw 3 likes on there.
Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, so if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the bell, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next week. Night, everybody.
Later, everyone. Good night.